My name is Ernest Lamoth. I'm a reporter for the Southland Journal.
And I'm Jaylin Mcclinton, candidate for Cook County Commissioner in the 5th District.
Well, Jaylin, thank you very much for joining us today.
Definitely. I'm happy to be here. Proud to support the Southland Journal. I think you all are doing great work. And again, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to sit down with you today.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Can you talk a little bit about your overall career?
Sure. So I am a community organizer and law student slash soon to be lawyer. I'm set to graduate in May. And I'll be the first lawyer in my immediate family. So for me, uh, social justice and civic engagement have been at the core of the opportunities that I've decided to take on to date. But first, before I jump into career trajectory a lot more, really just want to start by talking about the people whose shoulders I stand on. And those shoulders are my mother and grandparents. From an early age, they always instilled education in me. And it was something that was a priority for my grandmother in particular, having been raised in Mississippi and moving her family to Chicago with the thought that she wanted her kids and grandchildren to have a better life. And so I think that that's something that really has defined my career trajectory to date, because when I graduated college back in 2016, I was thinking to myself what it was that I was going to do. And I had been involved in political campaigns leading up to 2016, dating back to the 2012 cycle. I was a volunteer organizer on President Obama's reelection campaign down in Champaign, simply mobilizing people in the precincts around the University of Illinois. And, fast forward to when I'm actually graduating, was really trying to figure out where I could do the most good, and have been blessed to become a White House intern. And as Mrs. Obama says, you work for free. So I moved to DC from the University of Illinois, and I spent roughly 5 to 6 months in the nation's capital working in White House personnel in the Office of Management and Administration. And it was there that I really got an infatuation for people, right? Because my office and department handled and oversaw benefits and the functions as it related to all White House office employees. And so from there, of course, the 2016 election happens, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. At that point, it was kind of like, oh, I'm working for the first Black president. I'm going to work for the first woman president too, thinking that it'd be Hillary Clinton. Of course, we now know that that was not the case, but it was a experience where I got to hear Mrs. Obama speak, where many people would talk about, oh, I'm from, Chicago. And they'd say, where? And, or she'd say like, where are you from? And then they say a suburb. And she'd be like, oh, baby, that's not Chicago, like Naperville. And
Yeah.
so when I walked up to her, I just said, Mrs. Obama, I'm Jaylin, I'm from Roseland. You and your husband, being here means the world to me. And she immediately paused and she said, go back to Chicago. And I think that that's something that has really kind of defined my career trajectory to date, quite frankly, because I think, at that point, having been a White House intern, I really could have made the decision to stay in DC. I could have went to New York City. I could have went to California, but it was something about being rooted in my own community that really stuck out to me. And so I came home, ended up working for a state representative by the name Juliana Stratton, who I'm sure you may know now is, of course, our lieutenant governor and the first Black one, and did constituent services for her. And I think in that position, really learned a lot about what authentic engagement and constituent services meant, and was able to also advise her on policy and to just be a sounding board for all of the things that she was doing in Springfield, right? Things like banning preschool expulsion. The fact that we even, do that is a problem in itself. Working on things like clarifying that people in jail actually have the right to vote. They just need a mechanism to exercise that right. So that was a great experience too. I think just being able to really understand how government works at the local level. Um, from there, I transitioned to the Obama Foundation and was honored to return to the Obama orbit to help bring the Obama Presidential Center to Chicago. It was a tough job because I know that that project has riled up a lot of emotions in people for a variety of reasons. And so I was on the front lines helping to make the Presidential Center a reality. And then in 2019, ultimately made the decision to transition to law school. I knew that the center was going to be built, and I knew that it would come to the south side of Chicago. And for me, what better way to kind of continue my trajectory than working to understand the rule of law, and particularly how it impacted people of color and Black people specifically. And so again, I am excited to walk across the stage in May and to become the first lawyer in my family.
And can you talk a little bit about what made you decide that you wanted to run for politics at this time?
Sure. So public service is something that I've thought about for quite some time. This isn't just something that I woke up and decided like, oh, I'm going to do this. Again, I've lived in Roseland for 28 years of my life, with the exception of college and my short stint in Washington, D.C. And so in thinking about my entry point or what opportunity might make the most sense, policy was always the area where I personally resonated with. And so, really in Illinois at the local level, the only places one could do that is the General Assembly or on the Cook County Board. And so when Commissioner Sims announced her retirement, I sat back and waited a little bit to see, who might run for the opportunity. And I didn't announce until November because I think with where we are locally in Chicago and kind of this region, including the suburbs as well, I think it's just time for new ways of thinking, new perspectives, and really someone who's going to have the energy for the long game to really make sure that the 5th District is on the map when it comes to resources at the county level, the state level, the federal level, and working with the city of Chicago to see where there's an opportunity for a collaboration there. And so I think that's, one of the biggest reasons why I decided to jump in. I'll also tell you that I went to a community meeting about the Roseland Medical District, and I was sitting there and listening to the presenter kind of talk about, the county or the state's role in the project, the federal government's role in the project, and the city of Chicago's role in the project, but was dismayed because I hadn't heard anything about the county. And the health and hospital systems is one of the main functions of county government. And so after hearing that, that kind of compelled me to want to jump into the race as well, because I think healthcare is something that is critical to the day-to-day livelihoods of every Cook County resident, but in particular, Black people. So at a baseline, that's kind of why I decided to jump in the race when I did in November.
And then outside of healthcare, can you talk about a couple of different platforms that you're very passionate about?
Sure. For me, I look at this position in 5 pillars for the 5th District, right? I think, healthcare is going to be a huge priority for me, not only because we're still in a pandemic, but because this is a district with a lot of seniors. I live with my grandparents and serve as a caregiver to one of them who has Alzheimer's. So when we think about the ailments that plague our Black seniors, I have 2 senior advisors who can talk me through the issues facing their community. But not only that, I'm going to door knock and talk to as many people as possible to hear what the issues are. Beyond healthcare, though, definitely economic development and economic relief for working class families and Black families. The Cook County Board just passed an overwhelming $8 billion budget. And I beg the question, how much of those dollars and resources are going to the fifth district? And you better believe if I'm elected, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that our fair share is coming to this district, if not more, working with state leaders and city of Chicago leaders and our federal government to ensure that there are innovative ways to think about bringing in additional revenue to the county. Beyond economic development, the environment. Climate change is real, and the Cook County Board has jurisdiction over the forest preserves. There's a lot of land there, and we really need to think about how we're addressing our environment, because I know that there are regions in the fifth district who don't even have access to basic clean drinking water. That's a problem that I want to address. I think beyond the environment, I'd say criminal legal system reform and public safety. I've been on both sides of the V when we think about our criminal legal system, right? At my law school's criminal defense clinic, I've actually worked to defend clients whose rights have been infringed upon when they're accused of something. In that same vein, at my current law firm, I do consumer protection, plaintiff side. So I've been on both sides of the V. So I'll be bringing that perspective to the Cook County Board. But not only that, as a Black man and as someone who's actually been pulled over by the police, who, you know, has been subjected to humiliation by local law enforcement, I recognize that, you know, in our system, there needs to be accountability, absolutely. But we also have to talk about the fact that the system hasn't necessarily worked for people like you and myself who look like us. And so I'll be bringing that perspective to the county board and want to focus on that as well. And then, you know, I want safe neighborhoods too. And I think that's where the accountability piece comes in. But what I don't want is to acknowledge that punishing our way into public safety, that's not the solution. We've seen it time and time again for decades. And so I think, again, when I'm thinking about our criminal legal system and public safety in particular, it's time to really rethink and reimagine how we think about those two things. And then lastly, I just say the last kind of area that I want to focus on is ethics and promoting good government and fighting back against corruption. I get so frustrated in this region of Cook County in particular. It's like every single day when I pick up the newspaper, I'm looking at Twitter, I'm reading articles from the Southland Journal. There's some reference to corruption. And I just don't think that the fifth district residents deserve that. And the entire county doesn't deserve that. And so look forward to implementing good government reforms to limit and to curb the corruption that I think really gets us away from doing the jobs that we should be doing as public servants on behalf of the people who elect us to office.
Jaylin, is there anything else you'd like to add that maybe I didn't ask?
Sure. You know, I just say lastly, with respect to this position in particular, it's the first time in almost 30 years that we have an opportunity to elect someone in this region to this role. And I'm excited about the prospect of being a candidate and look forward to being on the ballot, and would just hope that people give me strong consideration when they go to the ballot box, because just simply put, I'm going to prioritize every aspect of this district, every region. I will be there and I will show up. And I think that the fifth district residents deserve that at a baseline.
Well, once again, thank you very much for joining us today.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.